8-7 exponential function.
So we need 15 minutes.
An exponential function is a function in the form y equals a times b to the x power, where a is a non-zero constant b is greater than 0 and not equal to 1. And x is a real number. What does this mean? Well, let's start using it. If we have to evaluate y equals 5 to the x power when x equals 2, 3, and 4. We can create an x and y table. And the x values we're going to use are 2, 3, and 4. Back to the x power. So what does it mean? How do we find y?
You substitute the x.
Okay, so 5, I substitute the x. So what's 5 squared equal to? 25. So then we can say 5 cubed, which equals
125.
and then we substitute 4 for the exponent. 625. Now, no, not in this case. That means a in this case would be what? 0, 1. Or maybe b is 1. So let's say, what's another way this can be worded? What's another name for x?
A real number.
Domain. What's another name for x? An input. What's another name for y?
Range.
Range.
Output.
Or output. Now, does y always look like a y, or can it look like a function? It can be f of x, right? Does it still mean y? Yes, you remember this. Let's try this again. Let's say you're asked to evaluate each exponential function. You have to evaluate t of n equals 4 times 3 n for the domain -3, 6. What does domain mean? Domain also means x. So they're telling us x values already, right? -3 and 6. of x is negative 3 and 6. We're substituting 4 times 3 to the n power. So what are we substituting for? Anybody?
Substituting for n.
For n. So n in this case would be negative 3. Now I automatically put x and y. Why did I do that? Out of habit, right? What is my
T of n.
t of n is my y. So what is my x?
N.
N. So out of habit I automatically put x and y. They stand for the same thing, it's just different variables. So what would this equal? 4 times 1 over 3 cubed. That means what? 4 over 27? So if we substitute the 6, 4 times 3 to the 6th power, that would equal 2,916. I'm sorry?
A wide range.
Yes. Now could this be something we can graph? Yes, we can graph these, right? Let's try that. So you can see these are examples of exponential functions. Do you see what the curves look like?
Yes.
Oh, they're very close to the x-axis and then they take off. Notice how the blue line is negative. Same thing right here. And the red lines are positive.
Does it always
Okay.
be like that? Like one negative and one positive?
It depends on the function you're given. So this graph represents two functions and this graph represents two functions. So we have to graph y equals 3 times 2 to the x power. What do we have to do first?
You have to find.
You have to evaluate?
So what are going to be our x values? Because they're not given to us. What's going to be our domain? So we choose, right? Like we did when we were graphing lines. So let's just choose -1, 0, and 1, for example. So this would mean 3 times 2 to the -1 power. What would that equal?
3 times
3 over 2.
3 over 2.
And we.
Or 3 times 2 to the 0 power. What would that equal?
3.
3. 3 times 1 is 3. Then we can say 3 times 2 to the first power, and that would equal 6. Can we plot these points? Can we plot -1 and 3 over 2?
Yes.
-1 and 3 over 2 is the same thing as 1.5, right? What about 0, 3? What about 1 and 6? Yes or no? What if we try -2 just so we have a little more representation of the curve? 3 times 2 to the -2, what would that look like?
3 over 4.
3 over 4. So that means -2 and something less than 1/3, about right here. What can you,
The curving.
what would you think would be -3? More than
Right there,
-2?
like on the line.
Very close to the x, right? So we can connect these, get an idea of the graph. Now, if you take out your calculator and input this into y, I'll try to do that also. If we input into the calculator in the y, If we input 3 times 2 raised to the x power, and we see the graph, we can see our line. And it looks like the line we drew. Now, can we see our table?
Yes.
Second table. Can we compare it to the table we created?
Yes.
Okay, go to the y equals, right here, and input your equation, the same equation we worked on. 3 times 2 raised to the x power. Okay. And then hit graph. You will see the graph and then the table.